Hi, my name is Alexandria Fitzgerald, and I have sustained 6 concussions. I had sustained the first 3 from being a competitive cheerleader, and whether it was being dropped on my head, as terrible as that sounds, or by different tumbling moves and every aspect that competitive cheerleading brings on. And due to them, I was never really healed properly, so my 4th, 5th, and 6th concussions were all in natural life occurrences. Some of the initial symptoms that happened as I was a cheerleader sustaining concussions were automatic blackouts, blackouts I had never experienced before. I didn't really remember the initial hit of when the concussions happened, because also I didn't know what I had gone through was a concussion. There was severe migraines, severe headaches, which are different than migraines, dizziness, lightheadedness, very tingling. One of the biggest ones was the short-term memory loss. I still deal with that today, but that was much harder back then. Also, one that I didn't expect to have was a sensitivity to my surroundings, was the overstimulation. One of the biggest problems was being in school or at a big arena where there are so many lights, noises, people, and you almost feel as if you're having a major panic attack and breaking down. As the cheerleading aspect, because we didn't know they were concussions, I went right back in. So if you're in the middle of a huge football game where you have hundreds and thousands of people cheering and yelling and you have lights and cameras going off, you just don't know what to do. You feel lost and scared and you want to run away into a small black hole. After every concussion I've had, whether it was seeing a general practitioner, pediatrician, I somehow always ended up in the emergency room. Each time it was followed by standard procedure of either a CAT scan, MRI, and other tests that go along with those. However, because the doctors didn't know, they would just say, okay, go home, get some rest, and I was signed to go back into cheerleading the next day. Back in the day, there were no things such as iPhones and computers and iPads and all the constant gratifications that we have that make up a social life. So whereas rest used to mean just go take a nap, sleep it off, what rest really needs for this type of recovery is you really need to take yourself out of that aspect. You really can't be trying to satisfy all of the needs of answering your phone, your text messages, your Facebook, everything that social media incurs, and also the social aspect of talking on the phone, seeing your friends, things like that. That takes a toll on your brain, whether it's simply reading a book or if it's taking a nap. All of those things need to be inclusive rather than just sleeping it off. Looking back at all of this now in hindsight, at the time I was extremely angry because I practically had to switch lives. I went from being the captain of the cheerleading team, I was at parties all the time, I was the president of a whole bunch of clubs. I only knew a social life. I didn't know much else. It was very, very, very difficult for me to accept not being able to do those things. So some might call it a matter of perspective. At the time, I was completely taken out of all of it. Once I slowly integrated back into school, I was able to partake and assist in some of these things, but it wasn't, the full gratification of running these type of organizations. That was like a grieving process. It was losing a part of myself. So, I kind of looked at it in 2 ways. I could sit here and be angry and depressed for the rest of my life and say, look at my glory days. Or I can use what I have now and find a new life and find a new way of filling that part of my heart. So when I still wanted to be a cheerleader, I couldn't necessarily be part of the team in that way, where I started coaching teams and mentoring, as well as mentoring a special needs cheerleading team. I started taking part in many charities and organizations where I felt that I could give back. I started slowly refilling in my time with things like that, which truly, looking back at it now, was more gratifying than any of those other past positions, because it felt like I was giving back and what I was doing was real. My advice to you is that if you think you've sustained a concussion and you know something is wrong, get the help that you need. There will always be another goal and there will always be another game. However, your future is just yours. It's only one life to live, and the future benefits will always outweigh the temporary.